No. You see, and I'll give you another example. God cannot make himself exist and not exist at the same time in the same way.
But that's not all power. All power would allow you to do that. That's just a definition of all power.
Then in that sense, in your sense, God is not all powerful.
Okay.
Not only that, but the Bible points out God cannot do evil. Yes, he's all powerful, but no, God cannot do evil.
Somehow, God was proven to not exist.
Yes.
How would you live your life?
Well, obviously my environment influences me. So I would be influenced by my environment as I am today. But if I began to realize that God did not exist, I would have to acknowledge that you and I are cosmic accidents,
Yes.
which means we have no innate value. There is no meaning to life. Morality is relative, which means whatever I want to do is legit, which means really this. Is bashing gays wrong?
Are you asking me?
Right. Think about that.
Yes.
Okay. Is abortion wrong?
I'd rather not give my stance on it.
Okay. Is abusing an innocent child wrong?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if there is no God, what you have to acknowledge is the opposite of what you just said you believe is equally true. Because morality is relative.
Okay.
Okay? So just think, all of you guys think about, what is my stance on the abuse of an innocent child, the murder of an innocent person, the rape of a woman? Okay, think, what's your position? What's your position on bashing gays? What's your position on abortion? Okay, we all have different opinions, I'm sure. But you see, if you're going to be a consistent atheist, you've got to acknowledge the opposite of however I answered those questions is equally true. So if there is no God, whatever I think about abortion or bashing homosexuals or abusing innocent children or raping women, I have to acknowledge that the opposite of that is equally true. If there is no God, because there's no objective morality. It's all subjective, we all create it. And so if I create the value that abortion is wrong because it's the murder of an innocent child, so what? There's nothing absolutely objectively wrong with murdering an innocent child. So the opposite of my opinion, which is abortion is just fine. In fact, you can take a 1-week-old baby and just drop it and splatter all over the floor. There's nothing objectively wrong with that. It's subjectively wrong or it's subjectively right, but it's not objective.
I may have asked my question incorrectly, but what I really want to know is, if God was proven to not exist,
Yes.
would you live your life in the same way? Would you continue to love your wife and your children? Would you continue to go to work every day? Or would you become a person who was raving in the streets?
Well, I think the evidence, because I'm 58 years old, is that I'm not going to radically change my lifestyle. But yes, I would change.
But would you still become the same? Would you remain the same person you are? Would you still love your wife and your children, even though if in a universe God did not exist?
Well, in light of the fact that my wife is sitting on your left, I better say, yes, I'd love her even if God didn't exist.
All right. Okay.
But wait a second. Wait a second. If I realize there is no God, then what is love?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say that. I'm not sure. But if my girlfriend was here, I would know. I would say.
Okay. But I think the facts are the following. If there is no God, what's real? Matter and energy. That's what's real. So, all love is a biochemical reaction. You know, a sex drive or a drive to preserve the genetic pool. So, if I realize there is no God, then I have to realize that this thing that I call love, that I say I have for my wife, is just either a sex drive or it's a drive to preserve the genetic pool.
But can't it be more than that? Because
How?
Well, so do you think us humans are different from monkeys and animals?
Well, if there is no God, there is precious little difference between you and me and a monkey.
Do you think the relationship between two monkeys and you and your wife is different?
I, from my observation, would say yes, but if there is no God, it's precious little difference.
Precious little difference?
Yeah.
But, so there is difference.
Well, there's difference, yes.
So what is the difference?
Well, I don't observe monkeys making a lifelong commitment to other monkeys.
Why not?
I don't know why not. They just don't have that instinct.
It seems to me it might be because we're more intelligent to them than them. And that must be because we have had a longer time to evolve. And now, because of our higher intelligence, we're able to interpret these feelings in a different way. Monkeys don't love each other, but humans do.
Okay.
And I don't think it's because there is a God, but because we've had a longer time to evolve, and we've had more time to interpret these emotions and these chemical reactions.
Okay, nice point. But here's my problem. My problem is, when you say there is no God, you limit reality.
Okay.
Because if there is no God, there's not some value of love floating around. There's matter and energy. That's all that goes on here. Complex biochemical reactions in my brain, right? So I might like to call it love, but all it is a chemical reaction. See, there's no me that goes beyond the chemical reaction. Because if there is no God, there's no soul, there's no personality. They're just massive chemical reactions. Now, maybe you want to call one of those chemical reactions love, but let's be real honest, it's not a free decision that you make. It's just a chemical reaction that goes off in your brain, and so you behave a certain way.
You brought up the idea of a free decision.
Right.
So does God give us free decisions?
Exactly.
But how can he if he is a supreme being?
Good. Great question. I like the way you think. The all-powerful God is capable of limiting his power by giving us a free will. The all-powerful God is capable of limiting his power by giving us a free will.
How can something all-powerful limit itself? It doesn't make sense.
Because he has a free will.
That's just...
Oh, come on now, you know that. I'm a dad. When I got 3 little boys, I limit my power. When they defy me and rebel against me, I could crush those little guys.
But how can
But I limit my power, and I say, okay, you have a free will to disobey me, but there are going to be consequences. I'm going to punish you. But I don't crush them. I discipline them in love, and then hopefully teach them.
So, if something that is all-powerful limits itself, isn't it still all-powerful?
Good. Okay, now that's why we got to be real careful with this idea, God is all-powerful. When we say that God is all-powerful, we do not mean that God can make 2 + 2 = 5.
Why can't he?
Because that is irrational, illogical, and contrary to reality.
Well, if he's all-powerful, can he not make the irrational true?
No. And I'll give you another example. God cannot make himself exist and not exist at the same time in the same way.
But that's not all power. All power would allow you to do that. That's just a definition of all
Good.
power.
Then in that sense, in your sense, God is not all powerful.
Okay.
Not only that, but the Bible points out God cannot do evil. Yes, he's all powerful, but no, God cannot do evil because his nature is good. And because his nature is good, he cannot do evil.
Okay.
See, so that's why you got to be real careful with this idea of God being all powerful. No, the Bible does not teach God is all powerful in the sense that he can make a square circle.
Okay.
God cannot make a square circle. That's impossible. Now, can God perform a miracle and change a law of nature? And then walk on water, rise from the dead? You bet. But you see, that's not contradicting logic. That is changing a natural law and performing what you and I call a miracle.
It still seems though that's if something is dead and it comes back to life, how is that different from making a square circle?
Okay, before I answer you, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the way you talk and think with me. It shows a tremendous amount of respect, and I respect you, and I thank you.
I respect you too.
I really appreciate it, man. So thank you. Okay, good question. What's the difference between God making a square circle and Jesus Christ rising from the dead? Good question. Making a square circle violates reasonable, violates logic. Rising from the dead is not irrational if there is a God who created the natural laws in the first place. Because all a resurrection is he's changing a natural law. He's not contradicting it, he's changing it. But to make a square circle is to contradict what is reasonable, what is logical.
Well, did God create logic? at that point? Because it seems if he created the square, he could say the square is a circle.
Good. Remember, it gets back to God is eternal, God's nature is good, but God's nature is also reasonable.
Okay.
See, another piece of evidence that God exists is your rational mind, that you obviously have developed very well because you're thinking so reasonably. Okay. You see, but now think about this. If there is no God, what did your rational mind come from?
I would say, and now I haven't done a lot of research in this, but
Okay.
evolution says that we have evolved our minds through history. We've had the luck of being able to develop our minds in a way that we can think this way. That's what I would say.
Okay. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to push your thinking back a little further
Okay.
into origin.
Okay.
Remember, if there is no God, there is no rational being who gave you your rational mind. Instead, if there is no God, your rational mind came from inanimate matter and energy evolved to a higher order. In other words, your rational mind came from the non-rational. See, now, sir, that's where my mind goes bonkers. That is impossible. It's impossible for the rational to come from the non-rational. My 3 sons have rational minds. Why? Because they come from her and from me. You see, they come from rational beings. I've never met a rational being that didn't come from a rational being. But what an atheist is saying is, a rational being can come from the non-rational.
What are you saying is rational?
What is rational is that which is reasonable, that which is able to perceive reality.
Is grass rational?
No, grass does not have reasoning power.
Would you say that grass can change over time?
Well, yeah, the grass will change according to whether it's watered or not.
Could you say that the grass adapts to its environment?
Yes?
So, given what you say, grass could be given a long amount of time to the point where it adapts enough so that it develops a mind.
Well, no, but the grass doesn't have a mind.
Not yet. It could.
Well, I have never seen a piece of grass develop a mind.
But just because you don't see it, like I don't see God, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Good point. I have never observed the non-rational work itself to the rational. I don't care if it's grass, rocks, trees, animals, plant life of any kind. See, I have never observed in all my observation and a non-rational inanimate object either become living, animate, or rational.
The only way I could retort with that would say is that, well, just because I don't see an invisible dog next to me does not mean it does not exist.
Okay, good. Very good. I've never seen love. I'm convinced that love exists because of my experience.
Okay.
Right? My experience of life is, my experience of relationships are that love is real. But I've never seen a foot of love. All right? So I know that the unseen is real. Now, how would you respond to me if I said to you, I believe in the pink elephant right here on my right. This pink elephant gives my life meaning, purpose, direction, and this pink elephant right here, I am convinced is going to give me life after death. What would you say to me?
I would say that's rational.
Good. Bravo. You would say that's irrational. But remember what your statement is based on. Your statement is based on, Cliff, first of all, there's such a thing as reality. And second thing is, there's such a thing as a rational mind. And if you exercise your rational mind in a responsible way, you will realize there's no pink elephant on your right hand. Okay, but you see all the presuppositions philosophically that go into that. What goes into that is, reality exists, Cliff, separate from your mind. The pink elephant, Cliff, is not there, even though your mind tells you it is. And the second thing you're telling me is, Cliff, if you'll wake up and smell the coffee and start thinking rationally, you'll realize that that pink elephant is not there. In other words, your reason can put you in touch with reality. And that's beautiful.
But doesn't that say that then God can't exist because it's irrational?
No, God is not irrational. God is rational, but God obviously goes beyond the rational. But guess what? So do you. So do I.
Well, I would just end by saying God, to me, is as rational as a pink elephant standing next to me right now.
Okay, God is as rational as a pink elephant. Okay, but then, don't you think that the evidence of order and design points to an intelligent mind behind creation?
No more than it does a pink elephant next to me.
And you really think that reason can come from non-reason? You really think that life can come from non-life?
I think it does. I think science shows that it does. And I'm not that intelligent to argue that point.
Okay, see, I would argue that life coming from non-life is a miracle. Reason coming from non-reason is a miracle. Objective morals coming about by chance is a miracle. The only problem is my atheist friends don't have a miracle worker. They believe in miracles, but they don't have someone to work the miracles. That's why rationally I have such a hard time with atheism.
Now, what he said right here is great. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in a deity, but the whole war of religion versus science, you know how earlier the other guy was talking about science? We shouldn't focus on banging each other, saying what is true, what is not, what's real, what's, that. In this case, it's better off to believe that we should have more open-mindedness. We shouldn't be all Christian because we need to, because of these beliefs. This is the sort of thing we should probably be talking more about.
Okay.
Moral values and thinking, based off of these such evidences, where do I go?
Right.
So this is the kind of thing that I like, actually, as an atheist.
Good. Well, I like it also. Thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being a rational Christian in this case, I guess.
You bet.
Because a lot of times I'm talking to someone else out over here.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're going to hell," and all this good stuff. I'm like, "Oh, great. Now you're gonna bring my day down a little." And why do we have to focus on hate, right?
Right.
So this sort of argument is a sophisticated argument where we can agree to
disagree.
Disagree.
Let me ask you something. Now, I respect you. You've said I'm an atheist. Obviously, you know I'm a follower of Christ. If I were to look you in the face and say, we both believe the same thing, what would you say to me?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that.
Good. Okay, but what's scary is some people in the university environment define tolerance as, oh, we all believe the same thing. No, we don't. That's intellectually dishonest, isn't it? You're an atheist. I'm a follower of Christ. You respect me. I respect you. But we don't agree. We disagree. But just because we disagree doesn't mean we take out guns and blow each other away. It doesn't mean we start calling each other dirty names. No. We respect each other. We seek to dialogue further. You ask me, why do you believe what you believe? I ask you, well, why do you believe what you believe? And then we try and reason together and come to some type of logical conclusion. Now, could you please tell me, answer my question, why are you an atheist? I really respect you for coming out here and saying I'm an atheist. So could you just explain to me what's the evidence that pushes you into atheism?
Well, besides all the science behind it, I always hate going into science versus religion, hence why I came to this sort of thing. So aside from all that,
right,
I've been touched by so many sad situations, and just looking at the world in general.
Right.
Looking at all the bad things, just having to think, is there really a deity out there so powerful that we live in this world with so much hate, bloodshed, violence? Sure, we don't see it here, but in other parts of the world,
yes, sir,
it's going on. So is there really an all-loving God that allows that will just see that and say, is that really what he was supposed to be doing? Is he not doing anything? There's theists, they're deists, they're atheists, they're agnostics. There's all these other different beliefs. There used to be polytheism, and then we went into monotheism, and then I just cannot see it all saying, oh wow, is there really a God out there? I don't think so. But besides all the scientific evidence against it, you got to think about all the things that are going on now and how narrow we are getting closer to not believing into. I know it seems a bit weird, but we used to believe in, or Greeks used to believe in polytheism, Zeus, and all those Greek gods.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, nah, that's just a bunch of, whatever.
Okay, wait.
And then,
You're thinking
now
well.
we have these.
Let's go back
these
for a second.
deities.
I love your thinking.
Atheists just go one God further.
Okay, just one second. I think you started out with the best reason not to believe God exists. Suffering, right? Suffering, evil, and death. I think you were very articulate. Right on. Keep thinking. Okay, so how does atheism help you deal with the problem of suffering better than faith in Christ would?
Because we accept it. We don't just say, oh, let's just, hopefully God will save me. We just accept it, we move on, try to make our lives better by not based off of that. We just try to, basically our philosophy is, I'm not saying for all atheists, just
Right.
don't be a jerk to us.
Good. But wait a second. Have you ever noticed how many Christian hospitals there are?
Oh yeah.
So if you put your faith in Christ, you better not kick back and say, oh, God will take care of it all. Because Jesus Christ commands his followers to heal the sick, feed the hungry, visit those in prison, right? What is your brain? A highly complex chemical reaction. So there's no you that makes free decisions. There's a highly complex chemical reaction that determines what you do. And that's what B.F. Skinner, the great atheistic psychologist at Harvard, pointed out. If there is no God, reality is limited to matter and energy, which means there is no me that makes a free decision. There's simply a complex biochemical reaction influenced by my environment that goes off, and what you see me do is not something I have freely chosen to do, it's something I have to do because that's what my biochemical reaction has programmed me to do. Do you understand that or not?
No, I understand that your brain has chemicals in it, such as endorphins, that cause your happiness, which allows you to feel happiness. Yes, it's chemically based. It is. If you believe in God and you feel that, then you understand that with or without God, that's still going to happen.
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
Without God, endorphins will go off, chemical reactions will happen, but there is no me. There is no me separate from my chemical reaction.
Those chemical reactions make you up.
Do I have a choice to hit the man, or do I have to hit him because my biochemical reactions have programmed me to hit him?
Your biochemical reactions don't program you to hit him.
Oh, they don't? Then
No.
why do I hit him?
Because you wanted to.
Because I want to. Who is I?
Your theoretical you wants to hit him.
Who is I? Who is me?
Your theoretical you, that's who it is.
Good. If there is no God, it's just theoretical. Me. Because in reality, if there is no God, I'm just complex biochemical reactions. My biochemical reactions teach me, hit him. So I hit him. You ask, hey, Cliff, why'd you hit him? And I say, because I had to.
But under your pretext of this debate, you've just created an alternative universe in which does not exist.
No. I'm living in the here and the now. And in the here and the now, in the real world that I live in, I can smack him, or I can take out my wallet and give him money for food.
I'm pretty sure you're not understanding what I just said.
You're saying there's a me. There's a humanness to me that goes beyond my chemical reactions. And I've been consistently asking you, really?
Yes,
Where does my humanity come from if you're saying that my humanity is more than my biochemical reactions?
Yes, but under your pretext of your debate, if you don't believe that you have the choice within your humanity without the God factor, then that is just an alternative universe in which does not exist. That is what I am saying.
Yeah, now you've missed my argument. You're not listening to me. My argument is not there's an alternative universe. My argument is the real world that we live in right now. Atheism cannot explain that. There's no explanation for free will. Atheism says no God, which means reality is matter and energy. Fine. If that's all I am, if I believe that I'm just matter and energy, then there's not a me that decides to love him or hate him. There's a me that does whatever my biochemical reactions program me to do. Guys, it's called behaviorism, right? B.F. Skinner, Harvard, behaviorism, to School of Psychology, very consistent with atheism.
So it's not a huge leap to make to say that anytime you have a creature, an organism that is able to experience something, and it is suffering, then that is morally bad, or that is objectively bad. Like, that's not a huge leap to make, right? Would you agree with that?
In general, I would.
Yeah.
But watch out. Someone can sacrifice their life for you.
Certainly.
And I wouldn't say that's bad.
Not
They
always.
suffer for you, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, sometimes if somebody sacrifices their life for me or for another person,
Right.
that is good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Not always, though.
Not always.
If they're sacrificing their life so that I can eat Cheerios in the morning,
Right.
that's not necessarily a good thing.
Excellent. Good point.
So I agree with you. I agree that there are times that a human can sacrifice his life and just completely nullify all of the good experiences he could have had, and that could still be considered a good thing.
Yes, sir.
But for that to be the case, I would say that their action of sacrificing themselves would have to somehow, in general, increase the well-being of the people, or increase the experience of everybody else in the
Okay.
world.
So are you utilitarian in your ethics?
I actually don't have a great understanding of utilitarianism, so maybe. I don't know.
All right, well, if we define utilitarianism as the good is that which promotes the well-being of the largest number of people.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say
Good.
I'd sign up for that.
Uh-huh. Okay, now obviously though the question is, who defines what's the good for the majority of people?
So it's not, okay, so I think I see what you're saying. You're saying the idea of well-being.
Yes.
What is well-being?
Exactly. Exactly.
That is something that's hard to define, I agree. You can feed a child candy every day in the morning.
Great point.
They're completely enjoying it. They're
Yep.
having a good time.
Rots
but
their teeth.
They die 20 years younger.
Yeah, well, obesity. Yep. If I'm an atheist and a moral relativist, I have to think about my positions on bashing gays, abortion, abusing innocent children, gassing Jews, and then if I'm an atheist and consistent with my relativism, I have to say, but the opposite of whatever I hold to be good is equally good.
Not necessarily. So you can say there are objectively good experiences. Okay, so for example, it's hard for a physician to say that this person is feeling pain. It's a subjective experience, right? If I have back pain, nobody else might be able to see my back pain. They might be able to see with scans or something like that, but I can say, man, I'm experiencing really bad back pain.
Yeah.
This is really, really painful.
Right.
And I don't think anybody could say that, well, that's just a subjective experience. If there was a doctor who said, well, I think that experiencing back pain is something that's good for everyone.
Good.
I think that maybe he is psychopathic. He would still be wrong.
Exactly. Okay, so your sense experience informs you that objective reality exists. And that's exactly what I'm trying to argue. Your moral experience demands there to be a God of some type. Why? If I go up to this guy, pull out a knife, and knife him to death, and you ask me, hey, Cliff, why'd you murder this guy? And I say, obviously, because of the color of his dark glasses, rims. Anybody who wears, red rims on their dark glasses should be murdered. Exactly. You're not going to sit back and say, oh, that's cool, Cliff. I understand maybe, it's your subjective opinion, so, it's all relative. No, I don't think so. I think your moral experience is the same as mine, and you're going to say, no, to murder the guy because of his dark glasses is absolutely, objectively evil.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, now the only way there can be an objective moral is if there is some being outside of you and me and him who gives him value, and me by murdering him am doing that which is absolutely evil. Because if there is no God, we're just cosmic accidents.
Can we just deny objective morality then? I mean, if objective morality requires that beings dictate what is objective morality, then why do we need objective? What's the practicality of having that objective morality?
The practicality of objective morality is it defines our experience best when I pull out a knife and knife him to death because of his red glasses. It is not, I don't think, I don't think it squares with your experience or your experience for me to knife him to death and you say, subjectively, Cliff, what you did is wrong, but I understand that subjectively for you it was right. I don't think you can live that out.
Well,
God assigning the value, that's subjective. Because God is...
No. If God created you with value, then for me to knife you is a denial of your value. That's why it's wrong.
Only in God's opinion it's wrong, if I let your logic.
Right. But because God created you for a purpose, you really do have innate, intrinsic value. It's not subjective value. It's not, hey, my African American friend, because I'm a liberal, enlightened white man, you have just as much value as me. You see, that's trash. That's all subjective garbage. The question is, in reality, whether I'm a liberal, enlightened white guy or whether I'm a fascist KKK guy, do you have intrinsic value? And if there is no God, none of us have intrinsic value. But if there is a God who created you in his image for a purpose, then it's possible that he really does have innate value. Does that make any sense?
it does, but what's the need for maintaining that each individual has intrinsic value? I still don't accept that premise.
Good. You're right.
Right.
I can't prove that.
Right.
What I'm appealing to is your moral experience. His moral experience.
And I'm saying that that intuition is misinformed.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Okay, but what you got to do just quickly is for me, you got to read a little bit of Nietzsche, Sartre, and Camus.
Right.
Have you already done it?
Kind of.
Kind of, okay.
Yeah.
But you see, because Nietzsche is brilliant, Nietzsche pours scorn on all of his atheist buddies who say, there is no God, but we have innate value, and justice really exists.
Right.
And he says, you guys are so cowardly, you're such a bunch of intellectual wimps and hypocrites, because you're not willing to take your atheism seriously and live it out. So you see, that's my only plea. My plea to you guys is, if you're an atheist, I respect that fact,
Well, I'm not.
but live it out.
Okay.
All right, but these other guys who were,
right.
and maybe you are, I don't know, whatever. Well, this other guy was. This guy right here, very kind, we had a great discussion, but he very clearly, I'm an atheist.
Right.
Fine. But in the same way that you're going to hold me to live out my faith in Christ,
Right.
so I'm going to hold you to live out your atheism.
That's fair. That's a
Fair?
That's fair.
Good. See, and then you know what Camus said? Camus said, as an atheist, the only question that I've got to answer is, why not commit suicide? In other words, if life is meaningless because there is no God, then obviously the question becomes, why suck wind? Why continue to live? It's not that you have to commit suicide, but you better seriously consider it as an option because life is meaningless.
I don't agree with that premise that Nietzsche kind of argues that life is meaningless.
Right.
I think the subjectively experiencing things and thinking and contemplating, reflecting, which is a uniquely human faculty. I
Great
think,
point.
That provides meaning for life, right? And so it's not that because there's no being dictating that there is intrinsic value for any one of us. That's not the only consideration, I guess, is there. It's reflecting on it's the faculty that is uniquely human, reason and reflecting on our own experience, and that provides a meaning to life, which I don't think Nietzsche would agree with, right?
Okay, great point. So let me make sure I've understood you correctly. You say, Cliff, wait a second. I think it's intellectually consistent to say there is no God, but the reason that I have meaning is because I can self-reflect.
Right. Right. Which is a uniquely human faculty.
Uniquely human
And
faculty.
we ought to do what is uniquely ours, kind of thing.
Okay, but how does, well, first of all, I got an issue with self-reflection,
Okay.
right? I think you're absolutely right. We can obviously self-reflect, but that means we have a free will, right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with free will. I mean, I think that a lot of it is genetically predisposed, neurologically predisposed. A lot of our faculties are based in neurological and genetic predisposition. So the qualm is that we can only attribute blame to someone else if there is a free will, right?
Good point.
But if you deny that there is a free will, then you
Right.
can't necessarily blame another human being, which is
Exactly.
ultimately what I want to maintain, I think.
Okay,
That
good.
We shouldn't have to blame another person because they're subjectively experiencing something very different than we're experiencing. And but the point is that they never had a choice in the matter of what they're experiencing. They were born into it, kind of thing. And so,
Okay.
or at least so I think, yeah.
Okay. Why do I respect African Americans so highly? The reason that I have so much respect for African Americans is because of what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Bosnia with the Serbs and the Croats and the Bosnians, what happened in Chechnya. You killed my grandpa. You murdered my sister. I'm after you, bud, and I'm going to put you 6 feet under. And what has the African American done? The African American has said, you, white folks, enslaved my grandma and grandpa. But instead of ethnic cleansing and wiping you off the face of the earth, I'm going to choose to forgive you.
Okay.
You see, tremendous example of free will.
But that's sort of like that forgiveness. That forgiveness is just it's pragmatic. It's so that we can continue to interact. But
Okay.
I don't believe in, like, I guess, true forgiveness, because true forgiveness requires an element of free will that I don't agree with, that I kind of deny, I guess.
Okay, why do you deny free will?
Well, because I think we as a society don't have enough neuroscientific research to really inform whether or not we truly have free will. And on the premise that we are nothing more than what our brains kind of conjure up, which
Good.
is something that I maintain, and
Right.
we can't even speak intelligently about it because we
Right.
don't have enough research on it.
Yeah.
And so, but until we have enough neuroscientific research to say that, that neuron X in my brain or a part of my brain correlates with a certain action of mine,
Right.
of which I don't have full control over in many respects,
Yeah.
right? Because I was born with, let's say, elevated levels of a certain neurotransmitter or
Right.
a certain predisposition in my brain to act however I do, right?
Yes.
And insofar as I was born that way, and in many respects, those levels are fluctuating all the time, right?
All right.
I don't have direct control over that. And insofar as I don't have direct control over that, I don't have free will over that. And free will is, I think, a requirement for blaming others, which is a premise which is assumed, at least, by many of, I guess, world religions. But I don't have a problem with it, but...
Well, not only is it assumed by that, it's assumed by our legal system.
That too, I completely agree with
If
that.
I go walking around the corner of your building here, and a professor's walking towards me
Right.
with a little balding on his head,
Right.
big stack of books under his arms, I haul back and hit your professor as hard as I can.
Right.
I'm hauled into a court of law. The judge says, hey, Cliff, why did you smack that professor? And I say, well, Your Honor, when I was a little kid, my dad was a little balding, and every time he'd abuse me, he'd pick up a big book and hit me over the head. And when I saw that professor at the University of Arizona, he just so reminded me about my dad, I had to hit him.
Right.
The judge will say, Cliff, I'm sorry about your upbringing, the environment, but you are still responsible for hauling back and hitting that professor.
What if the environment affected the neurology and which you would agree is beyond the control of the individual? I would agree that at the end of the day, we have to blame people for wrongs that they commit.
I would say hold responsible.
Hold responsible.
Hold responsible.
But I think that just serves a purely pragmatic purpose. That's so that we can have some sort of order in the world. And I think that, the legal application is interesting, but I think that our philosophy of law is going to change with the expansion of our understanding of neuroscience.
Sure.
Yeah.
And our study of psychopathic killers
Right.
changes how we treat it and judge a psychopathic killer. But sir, I can promise you, if you murder someone, based on how you've been talking with me, I don't think you're mentally out of control. I think you're a very sane, rational person, and I will hold you responsible if you pull out a gun and blow him away.
Right.
I'll say, I'm sorry. I'm sure there were influences that affected that decision of genetic heredity and also environment, but I am convinced you have a free will. I'm convinced you did not have to blow him away. You chose to, and therefore I'm going to hold you responsible for your decision. And you see, that's a big part of human dignity.
I would agree with that, but how do you argue for that position that there is that element of
Moral experience,
Okay.
experience of self-reflection.
Okay. But
Tonight, on my bed, I'm going to sit and I'm going to say, when I responded to that student, that was rude.
Okay.
When I responded to that student, that was respectful.
Right.
Don't do that again, do that again. So my ability to know myself and to judge myself shows that I'm more than just a complex biochemical reaction. There's a me that can judge how I handled my instincts, how I handled my drives, how I handled my drive for revenge. Did I seek revenge and carry it out, or did I forgive? I'm responsible for that.
And what if that moral experience, which you're at least from what I'm understanding, is irreducible almost? What if our expansion of the sciences, the physical sciences, and neuroscience, and what if it
Yes.
can be reduced to purely biochemical reactions? Would your position then change that there, at least is no? I'm not making the. I mean, the claim that there is no free will, at least free will, you would agree, would be devalued, right?
For some people.
Okay.
Okay, here's why I don't think that's going to happen. I am convinced if you give me a lobotomy, you can radically change my behavior.
Right.
All right? So obviously, I do believe that the biochemical reactions in my brain are very important. It's a big part of who I am.
Right.
My simple point is, that's not the whole story. There is still a me that stands beyond the biochemical that makes judgment calls.
But who is that you? Who is that
Exactly.
I?
That's a soul.
Okay.
That's me. That's Cliff. That's you. See, right now, I don't think I'm talking to a bunch of chemicals. Yes, obviously you have chemicals. Obviously you have biochemical reactions. No question. So do I. But I'm convinced that there's a real you. And that's what I really enjoy connecting with. The real you.